The Victorian Alfred Waterfront in Cape Town was the scene for the start of the 2007 ABSA Off-Road Championship series of 8 races, the 6th year that the banking giant has been supporting what it calls the premier off-road racing formula in South Africa. The support that Cape Town gave their expo at the V&A proved it, as thousands flocked to rub shoulders with the drivers and pit crews while checking out the latest developments and improvements to the steeds for the hard racing that lay ahead. In the Nissan camp, they know it's going to be hard. That's why Glenn Hall and his team prepares for every eventuality. With Hannes Grobler at the wheel and navigator Francois Jordan calling, they stormed to victory in Darling in 2006 and were hoping for more of the same.
Very much. I'm very glad that SP class is growing so much because it is a lot more competition, and that's what motorsport is about, you know. And we don't need to drive against each other in the same team. We obviously do that, but it's nice to have other teams that you can compete in, and the more the merrier.
In the other camps like Ford, there was a different approach, cautious but cagey. Listen to how Neil Woolridge put it.
I think we'll take it easy. When I say take it easy, I don't think any racing driver should say we'll take it easy, but I think it's important to bank some points, especially with the uncertainty of the cars. We're not 100% sure about the car, so I think it's going to be important to finish this first one. If we pick up some good points along the way, well, then that's a bonus. And once we get back to the workshop and we go through all the cars again and make sure everything's right, then we can really push.
The defending manufacturers champions Toyota, who wrested the crown from Nissan last year, were turned out in a new livery, and they were ready to unleash a new car and a whole host of new plans on the opposition.
Absolutely, we've got some great plans in the pipeline. Toyota put in a lot of effort in building in a new vehicle. Unfortunately, with all the developments that we've got in the vehicle, you know, we weren't able to finish the vehicle for the first event, so we're going to be reusing our old vehicle with slightly changed front suspension. But I think the new vehicle is going to be a massive step forward. So, yeah, we're looking forward to the Sugar Belt. I think it's going to be quite an interesting event for us.
Meanwhile, the stalwart Henry Zamatin was hoping for a green light for the prologue after scrutineering, but all he got was a puzzling yellow light, no show.
The little yellow light, it's been on since the car was built from day one, and it's never been off. I mean, your regulations state that when your ignition's on, the light must be on. So in all these years, the light's been on, and it's never given a minute's trouble until we put it through scrutineering, and suddenly there's no light. So what do you mean there's no light? The light's off. So it looks like there's a little hot connection on the globe.
That certainly was a case of many hands make light work. At least the Rhobi camp hoped so. For Thomas Rundle, there were no problems.
The car's 100%. I mean, the car's fully prepared. We find it's just you know, it's the first event of the year, so we're just going to take it easy and make sure we get to the finish of the event. That's our #1 goal for the Nissan Dealer 400 2007.
A man with a lot on his mind. In the motorite enclosure, the special vehicle class favourites were carrying the mantle, #1.
Yeah, look, it's a bit of pressure. I mean, coming to the first race, especially after winning the championship last year, and yeah, to have the #1 plate, I mean, it's fantastic. We had a great year last year, but I think I'm just going to go with the same strategy as last year. You know, obviously to finish each race, and Darling has never been my race. I've never finished it in 3 years. I've always had some mechanical problem, and it's a gremlin that I've got to get over first. In other words, finishing Darling, and that's what I've come here to do. Obviously, we're going to push it. There's but serious competition at the moment. There's new bats being built left, right, and centre. I think there's almost 10 new Sandmasters in it. There's the Buckies. You know, Woolridge has entered a few more Fords, and Nissan have got a few more, and Toyota. So, sure, it's going to be for off-road racing. It's just fantastic. I mean, you can imagine with this amount of competition out there, and yeah, the first race is always a little bit nervous, but you know, I've got the #1 on the car, and that will stay with me for the year, whatever happens. And yeah, I'm just going to take one step at a time.
Cox on a mission, a frightening thought. Another off-road racing veteran is Richard Schilling, who lined up his Plastotech Raceco again in Class S.
I'm going to get S1 back on the side of the car again. Nick beat us last year, he deserved it. Even though my navigator won the championship, I came second as a driver. Done a bit of work on the car, really to try and make it more reliable. Changed the gearbox, have a new gearbox in the car, stripped the car, rebuilt it completely, but really looking forward to it. We really started having fun. You know, we come to these races for fun and to win, and we had a good night last night, so we're ready for today.
For Roacon's David White, it's been a bit lonely. He's campaigned in a single-seater, but in 2007, he's got a co-driver, his brother, Gary.
Look, it's completely different, especially from the single-seater to from Class B to Class A. It's got a lot more power, the bat. It's just something awesome. With a single-seater, the Class B car, you just have to keep up momentum. With this thing, you can just floor it and it goes. I mean, it's just awesome. The power is just awesome. I think that's the way to go to do for off-road racing is Class A. To go into Class B, learn your things there and go to Class A. I really think that's the way to go.
But when all the talking was done, it was off on a 16-kilometer prologue to determine the starting order for the 400 k's worth of racing the next day. And who better to lead it off than Motorright's Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman. The testing and winding 2-lap 16-kilometer time trial was held at a quad bike racing park aptly named Dirt and Dust just outside Durbanville, and it was a true test for each one of the 64 entries. The men who had the fastest early intermediate times were Gary Bertolt and Henry Costain, who had changed their Atlas Copco's canary yellow livery to a turquoise blue, inserted a new gearbox, but the rest stayed exactly the same. They were still as quick as the proverbial racing snake. But the Western Cape race, which is held in Darling on the West Coast, is always a true test, not only for the fact that it's the first of the season, but because somehow it always ends up being dry as a bone and dusty as the moon's surface. However, the Motorride lads let it all hang out. The prologue affords you a relatively dust-free ride if you clock a time fast enough not to get left behind slower traffic. Cox and co-driver Henny ter Steger were determined. Their back 3.5 litre sounded in fine voice. The second Atlas Copco, that of father and son combination Nick and Ryan Harper, was also letting some of the other big-name teams sit up and take note. They eventually took 7th fastest time overall, just 67 seconds off the pace. Naim Mosaji and Rehan Bodhana in the all-orange TTR Racing Jimco Chevy 5.7-litre Monster were impressive too. While the total porter of Shamir Varayawa behind the wheel and Nav Siegfried Rousseau were good enough to nab a top 10 overall and 6th in Class A in a time of 17 minutes and 36 seconds. In the B class, it was no surprise. The newcomers of 2006 father and son Jan and Hendrik Kraai in their Keymax property backed with its Nissan 2-litre engine just picked up where they left off. But just 3 seconds behind them, it was Johan and Etienne Besaidnout in the Adenko Bat who kept the Kraais honest. With Marcus Taylor and Derek Keith in their JRE CLE Nissan just a further 18 seconds further back, Class B was humming. In Class S, it was much of the same as Glenn Gibson and Mark Whitehurst piloted their red Absolute Aceco to the fastest timing over the 2 laps in 18:58. But just 31 ticks of the watch later, it was Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn in the Kopenhagen Hotel Raceco Porsche 3.6 which steamed by. Class S was obviously an abbreviation for Class Sweat. These guys were working it hard. And no, this was not part of the official Dirt and Dust route. That was Richard Schilling and Chris Davies testing the revving capabilities of the Plastotech Raceco. There was help to put it back on its paws, and talking paws, Nazim Motti and Feroz Duda got their charge upside down or downside up before some roadside assistance came to their aid. In the SB class, there was the usual serious scrap, no mercy asked or given, and Hannes Grobler and Francois Jordan poured everything into it to take the top spot for the production vehicles. The proudly South African Nissan Navara was going like a Boeing. For teammates Duncan Foss and Ralph Pitchford, a good start was imperative, and that's what they got. They were pushing hard. And Chris Birkin had a trying season together last year and were keen to take control this time round. The Castrol Toyota team would have been pleased as they were just 8 seconds off the pace. Reigning Class E champions Manfred Schroeder and Ward Huxtable made the step up to the SB class in their Absolute Barlow World Ford Ranger, and Schroeder's ultra-smooth driving style translated into a 4th fastest class time. Berthold and his navigator Robin Houghton were coming on well towards the end of last season, and in their Castrol Toyota Hilux 4-litre they were 5th in class and 12th overall, an encouraging start to 07. Leaving a struggling Cliff and Louis Weichelt in their wake. Reigning SP class champions Neil Woolridge and Kenny Schulthammer were experiencing clutch problems which would hamper them severely, but took 6th in class. Their teammates 2006 Darling winner Brandon Harkis and Jean Moore were right on their exhaust pipe, only 6 seconds back. Harkis upgraded from a special vehicle to the relative comfort and visibility of a production car and obviously reveled in it. While Mark Corbett and Rudy Balza in the Century Property Development's Nissan Navara were fast enough to clock the 8th quickest time in class. Getting airborne on the quad bike track was Norway's Ivar Tollefsen and his co-driver Quinn Evans, who were still getting used to their Nissan Navara 4-litre and the South African conditions. In Class E, Roost Racing's newcomers Hein Moorman and Cecil Fincham in a Toyota Hilux set the pace in 20 minutes and 27 seconds. With Yuri and Andre Duplessis in the BB Auto Racing Nissan Hardbody leading the way in Class D. But their rearview mirror was full of brothers Henry and Maurice Matten in the Ryobi Nissan, with the yellow light intact this time, just 3 seconds behind. With the White Ray Sonics Nissan of Kutsia Laviskachny and Johan Gerber a further 35 seconds behind, Class D was also a hotbed of speed and some tough competition. Second in Class E, it was another very impressive pairing, Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in a Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7. With husband and wife team George and Sharon Barkhuizen still high after a maiden win in 06 in Class E in their Rurikon Toyota. But there were one or two mishaps along the way. Herman de Villiers and Willie Prinsloo proving that they had no wheel nuts left. Front left, we mean. But those who did hold on to their wheels were Grobler and Jordan, who would be dust-free at the front of the production car list, just 4 seconds ahead of Voss and his navigator Ralph Pitchford. And in the special vehicle category, it was Berthold and Kirstein who held a 21-second sway over the Motorrad pairing, with yet another black and silver team Cox and Tersteger in third. Just 94 seconds covered the top 8. It was clear that the special vehicle class would be a fight to the very end.
Car performed fantastically. Henry was doing a good job as a navigator. Quite a tight circuit, so I think it was difficult to see how the car would perform, but overall I think we're either first or second tomorrow, so we're on top of it and very happy with the decision of the new gearbox.
The first section, we didn't set a blistering pace. Our starter motor gave up on us. We didn't want to let the car switch off, otherwise we wouldn't be able to start it. So we took it a bit easy, and in the second lap, we had it all dialed in, and I'm confident we got good times. And but you know, it's only 16 Ks, and tomorrow is a long day, so we'll see tomorrow.
And before that tomorrow arrived, crews had to tweak clutches, set gearbox ratios and clear dust from the minutest and most impossible places. After all, 400 kilometers is a very long way to go, especially in the dry, dusty heat of the Western Cape. The ABSA Off-Road Championship continues.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Going the extra mile finance from ABSA. Going off the beaten track to find solutions.
For the first time, the ABSA Off-Road Championship Series featured the latest technological sophistication with live in-car tracking. The GPS system backed by Motorrad Insurance Administrators allows organisers to monitor competitors to ensure safety.
Motorrad made a conscious decision 2 years ago to get involved in motorsport, but it was important over those first years to build the Motorrad racing brand, which was extremely important for us moving forward. And I think without sounding arrogant, I think we've done that. We've had a fantastic 2 seasons. I think everybody now knows those results, and it's time, the company, it's time for us to bring the Motorrad racing brand and Motorrad Insurance Administrators brand close together. I think it's time for people to understand what we do as a company. I think we've given a lot back to the sport, and it's now time for us to do something for the company. So the tracking system, being able to get involved in that, is the perfect vehicle for us to do that. It's so close to own business. We understand what it's going to do for motor racing in terms of its safety. It really is important for us to get involved at that level. And Motorrad's business is peace of mind motoring, and we're just taking that to the track. So it's really an ideal opportunity for us, and we looked long and hard at it, and we're really excited about being involved with motor racing on the tracking side.
But it's not just the safety features that impresses. The system will also allow spectators an up-to-the-minute update on race info.
I think even something greater that many people don't understand, it's not just about the safety and about tracking the people while they're racing, but to bring racing closer to the man in the street. I think it's important that we want to bring people closer. We're getting involved in the sport, and this technology is going to allow people to follow the race from the comfort of their sofas at home. They can log on to the net. They can do it through their mobile phones, through their PDAs. And it's just something that's lifting the sport in our country to such a fantastic level, even further than what's available in some places overseas. So once again, it's just a fantastic development.
And the off-road series has also been a fantastic development for Darling in the Western Cape. Situated approximately 80 kilometers up the N7 from Cape Town on the west coast, this haven, made famous by comedian Pieter Dirk Eise and his alter ego Evita Besaidnout, hosted the circus for the 4th year running, and the little town and its surrounds has never quite been the same since. For 2 days, the off-road carnival pitches its tents, and the roar of mighty engines can be heard from far and wide. One man who loves the town is the defending champion and 4-time national champ, Nissan's Hannes Kobler, who is raring to go.
Yeah, we're happy to be here this morning. We had a good prologue yesterday. We at the moment third overall with the 2 special vehicles ahead of us. We're one of the first SPs. Duncan is about 4 seconds behind us, and all the other SPs are very, very close. So I think today it's going to be a big dice. I see the wind is blowing, luckily for some of the guys. So I don't think we'll have too big a problem with the dust. If we can get to the front, we'll lead and we'll show the guys the way. And we're going to try and win today.
A positive outlook from a very positive man. In the opposition Japanese manufacturers camp, Toyota, the pre-season testing has shown what the cars can do. Now the drivers have to go out and do it.
Yeah, we've been very successful in a lot of our testing, and it's made a big difference in terms of where we're going with the vehicle. And yesterday was another good reflection on qualifying, so that we've got a little bit more pace, and hopefully we won't be on the back foot. We'll be right behind the guys chasing, putting pressure, and I think it's going to make a big difference in the race strategy of the race as well.
For Yuri Duplessis in the BB Auto Nissan, they were prayers that the wind would blow all the notorious dust away. Quickly.
Dit is baie lekker. Die weer is baie nice. Ons hoop die wind aanwaai vandag. Ek dink die stof gaan 'n groot probleem is. Die ander probleem wat ons voorsien is die seeding probleem van gister. Ek dink ons gaan 'n hengse klomp ouens op een slag wees. Ek praat van tot 50 ouens in 4 minute wat gaan wegtrek agter mekaar. So ons is almal bo op mekaar, en ek dink dit gaan 'n taai dag wees. Gaan 'n moeilike dag wees.
Jannie Visser was just looking for points.
Ja, ons het gister mooi gery. Ons het net die ding probeer heel hou, en ek dink dis die antwoord van vandag. Ons wil maar net punte kry, en Toyota help met die vervaardigerskampioenskap, wat ons hom weer kan wen soos verlede jaar.
For Motorrad, the dust could be a factor. That was the gospel according to Evan.
We're second on the road, 20 seconds behind Gary. So, yeah, long race still to go. We're going to just push hard in the morning, keep the pressure on. Traditionally, we've always made it to the front races. So yeah, we're not too worried. It's going to be very dry and dusty, so that could be a problem. Yet the wind has come up already, so it could work in our favour. Yeah, just another race for the Motorrad racing team. You know, we were very successful last year. We won a couple of time trials and we started second and third on a couple of them. But majority of the time we worked our way through to the front, so we're not going to change the formula. We managed to win the championship with a 1-2-3 last year, and this is where it all starts, at the first race. So it's about using the team and the infrastructure and the backing that we've got. I've said it before, there's going to be the quick and the clever, so hopefully we're there at the end of the day with the Motorrad colours flying high.
Sounds like there could be a movie title there. Still, our movie started with Hannes Grobler and Francois Jordan in the Nissan Navara SP coasting away from the start line, following the Atlas Copco of Gary Berthold and Henry Kirstein, who had a 52-second gap ahead of them, just enough to let the dust settle behind the big porter. Hutchison and Bergman, the 2005 champions in Class B, are aggressive, but mix it well with cunning and all-out speed. The diminutive team manager for the Motorrad squad, Evan, is a cagey driver who gets the best out of the car and himself. Grobler and Jordan were slowly catching up, but aware of the dust problem, they were doing just enough to keep the billowing clouds of dirt at bay. The route featured several long straights and then some truly twisty parts which tested man and machine. 3 laps of about 130 k's each, and Grobler opened up the taps early on the straights. Grobler's stablemate, Duncan Voss and Ralph Pitchford in the second proudly South African Nissan Navara 4-litre had drifted off the pace slightly after starting only seconds behind the burly Grobler, probably to avoid the dust, while Cronje and Birkin in the Toyota Hilux were steady as she goes early on. The man with a darling bogey around his neck, Alfie Cox and co Henny ter Steger, were also trying to conserve their bat, but the Motorrad pair also knew that they had to keep it moving fast enough to still be competitive. While father and son, Ryan and Nick Harper, were making their big Atlas Copco bats sing along on the straights. They were obviously enjoying the much bigger 6-litre motor as compared to last year's charge. Well into the first loop, and Naeem Mosaji and Rehan Badhania and the TTR Racing Jimco seemed to have things running nicely. They were 5th in Class A. Just behind them, clocking very competitive intermediate times, it was Shamir Varayawa and his nav Siegfried Rousseau in the Total Motorsport Porter. They logged a 1 hour 25-minute timing for Loop 1, just 2 minutes off the fastest time. Looking slightly worse for wear, it was Clint Gibson and Mike Brown's absolute bat, with the front right wheel limping ever so slightly due to a broken top arm on the suspension. Bevan Berthold and Robin Houghton in the second Castrol Toyota were 12th overall and 5th in the SP class, but Roerich and Schultheimer were all over them and in their dust. The defending SP champs were itching to go by, with teammate Brandon Harkis and his co-driver Jean Moore in the Ford Racing Ranger driving with control. While the Cries, who made such a fine debut here last year, were back in the groove in the Keymax bat, leading Class B well into the first loop. The father and son combination were letting it all hang out. And so were the locals, who were vociferous in their support and enjoyed the spectacle as the cars sped by. Robert Walk and son Garrett, who was celebrating a birthday, swapped the driving duties in their single-seater back, and father Rob was acquitting himself well. He was 9th in class. Meanwhile, Gibson and Brown were limping along, hoping to get to the designated service point to repair that irksome suspension arm. The dust was certainly not settling though, and with the cars as close as what they were, it was a veritable dust bowl out there. Corbett and Balzer were 18th overall and had to eat a lot of it. For the Rokon brothers, White, the only thing that would be after this lot would be their surname. The dust was getting in everywhere. For Norway's Ivar Tollefsen and the Nissan Navara, this took some getting used to, but he was getting the hang of it. While Glenn Gibson and Mark Whitehurst in their absolute ace-co Nissan were 30th overall, going well and leading Class S, but the heat was causing them trouble.
Problems? Yeah, we've got a bit of an overheating problem. Let's have a look and see.
A little bit of panic in the camp, we sense. And that left Nick Gosler and Richard Carolyn slip into the lead in Class S in the Kopenhagen Hotel Raceco with its big Porsche 3.8-litre engine. And that cake mixer sound belonged to the engine of Gibson and Whitehurst as their overheating troubles became more serious and as the rest of the field scrambled by. The Western Cape scenery is beautiful, but not when you're stuck with a car that's given up the ghost. Henry Zermatten's Ryobi Nissan, in contrast, sounded ready to take more punishment. But the dust was becoming overbearing, as it always does here. The specials are particularly affected as they have no windscreens, and the dust goes everywhere. Just ask Gil Null and Sandra Labuskaghni, who was 7th in Class B. The Race Sonics boys, Kutsia Labuskaghni and Johan Gerber, were 3rd in Class D in their Nissan Hardbody, just a few minutes down on Zermatten. With Class E champions and leaders Jannie Visser and Joks Leroux in the Castrol Toyota enjoying a solid lead halfway through Loop 1. Thomas Rundle and Brian Roberts in the Barden Tyre Services Nissan were cautious on their first lap in their new car. Back after this.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA. Finance from ABSA. Going the extra mile to get you financed.
It was diesel and dust in the Western Cape in the first round of the ABSA Off-Road Championship event in Darling. And with a short prologue, there was a mass of cars right on each other's tails all the way through the field of 62 starters. It made passing a difficult maneuver at times. Alfie Cox had started 39 seconds behind his teammate Hutchison, but he was on his way to clocking the fastest time for Loop 1, a 1 hour 23-minute effort. But Grobler and Jordan themselves were just a few ticks of the clock off that. While Voss and Pitchford were also right up there, keeping the red flag of Nissan flying high. The Atlas Copco of Berthold and Costain had a problem virtually from the start and dropped out, but their teammates, the Harpers, were flying up the order in their bat. While lap 2 also meant a meaningful move from Mark Ronnier and Chris Birkin, who despite hitting a barbed wire and losing time with a puncture, were right in the thick of things. Variawa and Rousseau were battling their car with back brakes, but it did not seem to slow them down. With only one eye on the road after an altercation, Ford's Manfred Schroeder and his co-Ward Huxtable were piloting the absolute Barlow World Ranger to 2 very consistent laps, in fact within 3 minutes of their first. Harkis and Moore were feeling their way too in the new car and were never anywhere near pushing the envelope first time out. While Musaji and Bodhania clocked the 3rd fastest time on Loop 1, but lost some time due to a few mechanical problems on Loop 2. The Rapsa bat of Nandus Alberts and Colin Hunter had made a significant move up the order. They were 16th overall, but had charged into the top 12. For the class champions, Woolridge and Schulthammer, there wasn't much joy as they were strangely off the pace in the SP run. David Walk was having a fun time in the Super Pave back with its 5.7-litre Chev engine, and he was also very consistent on the first 2 laps. But the dust, water and resultant mud was making some cars unrecognizable, the Cries steaming along. While Gary Gillingham and Peter van Vieren in the Kopenhagen Hotel bat had overtaken several teams, they were up from 23rd and into the top 15. Class B second places Johan and Etienne Besaidnout in their Denko bat had picked up 2 spots to put the pressure on the leaders in their class. And in Class A, Karl-Heinz Silvold and Mannekes Helberg had made the move of the day. They were 45th overnight but were up into the top 12. The Century Property Development's Nissan Navara of Mark Corbett and Rudy Balza had been holding station just inside the top 20, but they've been battling a disruptive misfire. Bloemfontein-based Peter Ruthven and Johannes Boshoff in the Rubicon bat had made up 15 places, up from 31st. Ruthven is the CEO of Rubicon, and they were having the drive of their lives. While at Denko's Bez Besaidnout was still recovering from a recent shoulder operation, but navigator Johan de Bruin kept him honest. Chris Visser and Jaapie Barnos kept the Toyota faithful on the lookout in the SP class as they were up from 35th and into the top 20. While the BB Auto Nissan of the Duplessis, Yuri and Andre was having a hard time keeping Rhobi's Henry Zamatin and his co-driver and brother Maurice at bay. It was a true battle of the siblings for supremacy in Class D. Neither of them could relax either as the Raysonic squad could see Labuschagne and Johan Gerber were right behind them, just waiting for a mistake or a wrong move to skip right on by. The Rubicon outfit had a second car in the running, with the Whites David and Gary who were very consistent in logging their loop times, with David still getting used to receiving directions. Former national champion, the self-professed old man of the sport, Richard Schilling and his faithful co-driver Chris Davies were just doing what they do best, going as fast as they can. They were 54th at the start, but were up into the top 25, despite this wrong slot here. The Bozel Truggy Zarko of Gil Nel and Sandra Labuschagne was solidly settled in the 4th place in Class B. However, there was just no one who could pass a flying Evan Hutchison and his navigator Akim Bergman. Their motorized bat was gliding along, and a small man with a big heart was piloting it to perfection and in the lead, making hearts at the designated service point beat Custard in the motorized paddock.
No, I've had a good run so far. Basically led from the start, and Gary had a problem early on in the morning, so we went into the lead. Yeah, flawless run, the car's running beautifully, feeling nice and fit and strong. No problems. I'm not too sure exactly what's happening behind me. I think Alfie started to catch up, but we haven't heard any news. I'll find out what's going on now. One last lap, but no problems. Our course was good, well marked, excellent event so far.
And that was the common consensus amongst the drivers. For Hannes Grobler and Francois Jordan, there was the joy of leading the production car class, and the proudly South African Nissan Navara was purring beautifully. But note Francois' red eyes due to the extreme dust. It was really tough out there.
It's going okay. It's a bit different from normally. We dice with the time now instead of the other competitors. So we have to drive as fast as we can. We don't know how far the other guys are behind us and where they're on the corrected times. They're catching up on us. So we just try to maintain the best pace we can and not to make mistakes.
Voss and Pitchford arrived next, firmly ensconced in 3rd place overall and 2nd in the production car class. A 1-2 for Nissan. Voss was happy but clearly a tired and lucky driver.
Yeah, it's been going well up until about a K out of the end of the stage when the engine just died. The whole car cut for about 60 seconds. We fiddled with the battery and Ralphie found the problem. So hopefully we know what the problem is and we can fix it. But otherwise it's going well, no problem.
Within sight of DSP, Alfie Cox again thought his darling bogey had struck again.
We thought we were running out of fuel. The car just stopped and the pumps were making a noise. About 3 kilometers from the finish, and Jack Pickham towed us in over the line, but he was only on his first lap, so thanks to him. And then Duncan trod us now in the transport stage to the finish. We're just trying to see what's wrong with the car.
Luckily for Cox, they got it going again. At DSP, it's wash the numbers, clean, refill, and hit the road again. In the Toyota paddock, a few pairs of pliers were working overtime, but Mark Cronier is not the type to get fenced in.
We've been having a good run. We clipped the fence earlier this morning, and unfortunately it's caught up in the rear caliper, and it caused us to have a puncture. So other than that, we're having a great run. We were keeping a nice pace, and I was actually quite confident until we got the puncture. So we'll see now what happens.
They soon got the wire trim off. For Shamir Varayawa and the Total Motorsport Porter, there was a more serious problem. There was just nothing when he touched the brake pedal.
No brakes, but otherwise fine. Car is moving lovely. We had a brake problem 20 kilometers from the start, and we've been nursing it ever since. But actually we're doing quite good, considering we had a problem. But yeah, we'll see the last step what happens.
For Ford, there was some fortune and some misfortune. Manfred Schroeder could hardly see where he was going at times. The Ford Ranger was playing up.
Just the windscreen washer doesn't want to wash, and the windscreen's filthy, and for some reason when it's hot, the car doesn't want to start. So we stalled twice, and we had to wait for the next guy to push us again so we can get going again. Otherwise, it's going very well, enjoying it.
For the 2006 winner of the Western Cape race in Darling, Brandon Harkis, it was a whole new experience. From a single-seater to a Ford Ranger SP in just 12 months, and he was determined to find his feet as soon as possible. And with his abundant talent, it didn't take too long at all.
Taking it easy, trying to get used to the car. Obviously first time I raced in this car, so I've just had a cautious approach the whole day and been pushing probably like 75 or 80%, and we just seem to be making up time, so I'm really happy. The car's excellent. For first time out, I think the Fords are really good. There's time in my driving left, there's time in the car, and we're not far behind, so I'm really excited about this last lap. And this race has been really good to me in the past, so I'm looking forward to the last lap. It's going to be good.
And as the cars left DSP and went to the start line in time for the last loop, it was clear that the last 130-odd Ks of racing would be a race of attrition, consistency and pure doggedness. And as these gladiators of the off-road have told us 1,000 times, it's not the quick who win here, but the smart, those who can serve their vehicles at the right time and the right place. Designated service points, crews are stretched to the limit. They have but a few minutes to clean cars, helmets, visors, and in the case of the production cars, windscreens. Set, change, repair, and then feed the drivers and navs before they hit the road again. For Plastotech's Richard Schilling, some sustenance was desperately needed for a 24-hour day, you see.
Energized bar one, oh man, can still go through. Can still drive the car quite quickly. Having a lot of fun. Yeah, late up time. I don't know what's happened to the other guys in our class, but we're enjoying ourselves and we're looking forward to finishing off this last lap and hopefully winning our class.
And he and co-driver Chris Davies were indeed the only Class S crew left standing. As for Hutchison and Bergman, there was no stopping them. The Motorride crew were on a seek and destroy mission. But Cox had not given up hope. In the Motorride meetings, no team orders are issued. He was just 3 minutes adrift. While Grobler and Jordan were comfortably leading the production car class by the proverbial mile. Well, okay, almost 13 minutes. The four-time champion was doing a great job of defending his darling title from just a year ago. By now, the route had been churned up badly and there was more dust than ever, but the Harpers hardly noticed. Nick and Ryan were up into 4th overall in the Atlas Copco, a big move from 7th place after the prologue. Halfway through the last loop, the spectators were making their way to the finish line to watch the spectacle of the dust and mud-covered racers come in. By now, more than 30% of them had to call it a day. By the end of the racing, it would be 50. But not the father and son team of the Harpers, who were doing some low flying on the way to the line. Varayawa, who tried his hand at the production car section early last season but quickly reverted back to the special vehicles, was putting together a fine drive despite his brake troubles, and his crew seemed to have sorted that out at DSP. Former SA champions Foss and Pitchford soldiered on as only they can. While another SP class, the Castrol Toyota of Mark Ronnie and Chris Birkin, was still very much in it and had not given up hope. The Hilux was sounding like it was asking for more punishment. Just watch those fences, Mark. Certainly hadn't given up any hope and was still going like the clappers. There was still a good 40-odd Ks to go, and in off-road racing, that's a long, long way. Harkis and Moore were up into 8th, all the way from 14th. They had their Ford teammate Schroeder keeping them honest, just about 3 minutes behind them. For their team manager Neil Woolridge, it was a frustrating day at the office, as they had to call it a day with a litany of problems. When Kenny put the route book down, it was truly the end of the road. Sulwold and Helberg were in superb form in their Zarko and blazed into the top 10, overtaking 35 cars in the process. Somehow the German has perfected the art of coming from behind, taking it easy in the prologue, and then racing like all heck on the day when it really counts over the longer distances. While Naim Mosaji and Rehan Barhania in the TTR Racing Jimco had just dropped into the 11th place, 2 down from the prologue start time. Nardis Alberts and Colin Hunter kept pointing the big Rapsa bat's nose in the right direction, and the car did the rest, and for them it resulted in a fine 12th place overall and a 7th in Class A. At the end of the day, the notorious Southeaster made its presence felt again, and thankfully blew a lot of the dust away. Just in time for the spectators to enjoy Gary Gillingham and Peter van Vieren scooting by, in 13th place overall and 8th in class. The Keymax property bat was going undercover, but the Cries can never disguise their fine talent as they sped to a Class B win by just more than 4 minutes. And that margin was over the Edenko bat of Johan and Etienne Besaidnout, who were eventually 16th overall. Ruthven and Boshoff and the Roacon Bat Special were 9th in class after a very strong drive. While birthday boy Gareth Walk drove it home on the last loop to take 10th place in Class A. Chris Visser and Jappie Baardnost had to settle for 6th in class in the Castrol Toyota. Looking like it had just started, actually. With Century Property Developments, Mark Corbett and Rudy Belzer 1 place further back in the SP class. The crowd certainly got its money's worth as the 3rd place Class B cars sped by, with the Besaidnouts probably smiling from ear to ear. They were just into the top 20. Schilling and Davies were eventually the only Class S crews still on the road. There were 4 entries and only 1 survived the rigors of Darling. And in Class D, it was the brothers Duplessis, Yuri and Andre, who took line honors by more than 10 minutes. Yanni Visser and Jocks Leroux were determined to again do their part for Toyota, and they did. They were leading Class E by almost half an hour, with Labuschagne and Gerber second in Class D and 25th overall. A fine drive by the Raconics team. Gil Nel and Sandra Labuschagne were one place further back, but more importantly, they were fourth in Class B, picking up valuable points. Ruacon's White Brothers were 27th overall on debut, and it promised good things for the rest of the 07 season. But some bad luck was waiting for them around the corner. While Jack Peckham and Lucio Santoro were second in Class E and 28th overall in the Ford Ranger 2-litre. But trouble for the Whites.
So you got a front run is flat as well?
Yes, it's our fifth flat wheel today. So we must just see it carry on, see where we can go.
Not too far to go.
I hope not.
Cliff and Louis Weichelt in their Basel Toyota Hilux was third in the D class and were happy with a handful of points after a few small problems. And in the Castrol Toyota of Brian Martin and Oki Fourie, there would have been jubilation too, as they took third in Class E.
Vehicle and asset finance from ABSA, going off the beaten track to find finance from ABSA, going off the beaten track to find solutions.
At the finish line of the first of 8 races in the 2007 ABSA Off-Road Championship Series, it was Motorrad Racing's Evan Hutchison and Achim Bergman who took the honours in 4 hours and 26 minutes. And it was another 1-2 for the black and silver stable, as the reigning special vehicle national champion Alfie Cox and his co-driver Henny ter Steege made the right turn towards the line in Darling. He was 3 minutes behind, but Hutchison was a happy camper.
Yeah, we're very happy. First overall. End of last season we were first overall. It was the first time I've done that in the Class A. But now it's to start the season off again with another first overall, you know. It was a good race, was marked brilliantly. All my thanks to Achim, my navigator. He never put a foot wrong the entire day. To the guys at Motorrad, we've got Marcia and all the guys from the Cape Town branch to support us, so it's good to come down here and win for them. I've had a bit of bad luck here in Cape Town for the last 2 years, but yeah, to start the year off like this with a first overall, points in the bag, makes me very happy and very proud of what Motorrad have done for us. So yeah, we're top of the world.
Cox was pleased to finish a race in Darling.
Well, like I said, you know, Darling's been a gremlin for me. I never finished this race, and 3 attempts, I think, and but to get here is fantastic. But we had our problems along the way. We ran out of fuel 4 Ks from the end, and Jack Peckham towed me over the line, and then Duncan brought me into the service. So it's fantastic, the camaraderie that the guys have got out there. They brought me, and then yeah, to finish second today, it's fun. For Motorrad, it's fantastic. And Henny did an unbelievable job again. I have to thank him. The navigator is the most important thing, I believe. I just come along for the ride.
And the evergreen, ever-popular Hannes Grobler provided the ride for his navigator, Francois Jordan. They were victorious for the 2nd year in a row in the Western Cape.
Yes, yeah, we enjoyed it thoroughly today, you know. Luckily the wind blew, and otherwise we would have had a lot of dust, and I think it was good for the guys at the back as well. We're glad to win. It's always nice to win. That's why we're here.
For Nissan Motorsports manager Glenn Hall, his cup runneth over again.
Yeah, fantastic start. I mean, Hannes, as usual, did a perfect job. And, I mean, up until the end of lap 2, Duncan and Hannes were 5 seconds apart after 250 Ks, so that was brilliant. Duncan seems to have suffered a double puncture earlier on, so we're waited with bated breath here. I think it's going to be pretty tight for 2nd place.
Well, 3rd in the specials went to the Harpers, who impressed with a fine debut in the turquoise Atlas Copco, despite a hard suspension.
Yeah, look, I'm very happy with the 3rd. The car brand new, and we need to do a bit of work on the suspension. It was a bit rough out there. It took me a while to get into it, but then I started picking up the pace, and you know, it's a good result for first time out.
Shamir Varayawa brought his total motorsport porter home in 5th place overall and 4th in the special vehicle class.
Yeah, it was a good run today. We had, unfortunately, we drove without rear brakes the whole race. So
so we were braking on the front wheels, and that could have hampered some time or slowed us down a bit, but no problems with the car. Ran faultless, no punches, nothing. So we're quite happy with our finish.
While Mark Cronje and Chris Birkin delighted Toyota fans with the second place finish in the SP class in the old Toyota Hilux, they'll be itching to get their hands on the new car.
The route was always, route's always very tough, but awesome job. The guys have done a great job marking the route. It's always a nice event. This is one of my favourite events of the year.
Voss and Pitchford overcame their puncture troubles to take third, while Harkis again proved that the Cape is a happy hunting ground for him and the Ford team this time round.
Once again, Cape Town race has been really good to me. I'm not quite sure of the results, whether I've come second or third, but that for me, first time out in the SP, and for my new team, for all the guys that worked till, some guys didn't sleep for a week. This is obviously for them. And I think you're going to see good things from Ford this year. Now, there's a lot of time left for me in my driving. There's a lot in the car. I mean, we've basically just taken the car out the box, virtually no testing, and come to this race. So I'm really excited for the year, you know. And I just kept the simple philosophy today of going about 80% the whole day, and let the race come to me, and that's exactly what's happened. And I'm not quite sure of the result, but it's a big one for me and for the team.
It was a fourth, Brandon. Grobler and Jordan were 10 minutes ahead of the Castrol Toyota of Cronje and Birkin, and 50% of the cars in the top 10 were Nissans. And another closeout for the Motorride crew, Hutchison and Bergman with a healthy lead. The Cries took 9th overall to win Class B. Until next time, you keep it on the road, we'll keep it off-road.
That was the ultimate test, the ABSA Off-Road Championship.